Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We will call this meeting to order. Before we begin, I am wearing some attire today. I lost a bet. I am not a fan of this team, but I lost a bet to Councillor Taylor. So that is why I am wearing said colors.
Looks
this
good.
evening.
Looks good.
How many people are happy wearing an Oilers jersey? The biggest gallery. So
You didn't paint your face.
no, I didn't paint my face. With that, we will. I will take a motion that we adopt the agenda for the June 7th, 2022 regular meeting of council as presented. Okay, Councillor Chenard, all those in favor? Motion carried. Can I get a motion, please, in the minutes of the May 17th, 2022 regular meeting of council be adopted as presented? Councillor Moore will make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. And we have no public hearings tonight, but we do have a couple delegations, and we're very fortunate to have in council chambers once again finally our annual update from STARS presented by Glenda Fardin, Senior Municipal Relations Liaison, and John Gogan, Provincial Director of Northern and Central Operations and Pilots. So come on up.
Thank you.
It's been a few years since you've been in the chambers.
I know, and I just can't tell you how pleased I am to see all of you again in person.
Woohoo.
It's lovely.
Yes.
Advance. Thank you so much, Daniel. Okay. Well, we're both excited. I really was very excited that we have John to join us because he represents the operational side. So if you're at the end, if you have any of those burning questions about specific to operations, this is your opportunity. This is the man.
Helps me. So disappointed.
So first I want to say it's just so nice to see so many returning faces, right? And familiar faces as well as some new ones. So it's fairly in-depth, so I'll try and go as quickly as I can through it, but I really wanted to provide a good overview because we haven't had that opportunity to bring you up to date and also for your new counselors. Okay, so first and foremost, thank you so much for our partnership. You are the reason that helps us to enhance and sustain STAR's ability to provide critical care anywhere. And so the COVID-19 pandemic, well, it continues, and STARS has remained under very strict protocol to protect our operations. Now, we've taken a very slowed approach to reintegration of our support staff, but now that's been relaxed a little bit more. Our STARS transport physicians continue to provide critical care guidance for your healthcare professionals and provide airway management, ventilation, and resuscitation procedures. And we still continue to see an increase in stress-related types of missions like heart attack, stroke, drug overdose. Previously, we were seeing 1 in 5 STARS missions as being COVID-related, but now cases are starting to decrease, so that's a really good thing. And there's positive work that's happening behind the scenes in the STARS Emergency Link Center located in Calgary. It's an immediate 24/7 safety network. They have access to every available resource, as well as GIS mapping and preset coordinates in order to locate a patient. Now, we're currently averaging approximately 10 missions per day across our 6 bases in 3 provinces. The majority of those 5 to 6 missions per day are in Alberta alone. The Emergency Link Center, it says 32,000, but I just received new numbers. It's currently about 36,000 emergency requests each year. Now, of course, we do not fly on every call. It must be deemed critical in order for STARS to be launched. So there are exceptions to the rule when additional resources may not be available or there may be access issues in order to reach the patient. Our crew also travel by ground ambulance as well as fixed wing in special circumstances. And our transport physicians are always in radio contact. They also can assist first responders. There's approximately a 1 to 10 ratio for STARS community assistance, or in other words, let's say that a community sees STARS missions 10 per year. Well, that means that also we have probably assisted your local hospital, your healthcare providers, and your first responders with approximately 100 other additional calls during that year. Because our STARS transport physicians, they provide medical oversight on all critical calls, as well as virtual consultation with your local physicians. So regardless of how a patient may be transported, whether it is by ground ambulance or Alberta Health Services fixed wing or STARS helicopters, it's our transport physicians that are providing that link to critical care anywhere. So there's also a new pilot project that was launched with our transport physicians now taking a shift in the emergency link center, and it has been proven to be extremely effective. Our STARS crew, they administer critical care while en route in the back of the helicopter, while en route to the hospital. And our transport physicians are now saving precious time on the back end by coordinating the complex logistical arrangements with the receiving hospitals for such things as scheduling neurosurgeons, specialty teams, the cardiac cath lab, or the cath scanner, which would be mandatory for stroke patients. So in time-dependent cases, like a brain bleed, for example, minutes count. And our physicians are now able to make virtual face-to-face decisions using real-time diagnostics. So this results in the immediate direct delivery of a critical trauma patient to the operating room. It is a game changer. So the pandemic, of course, it impacted our revenue in all funding areas. It forced us to think outside the box and be proactive. So we identified operational and fundraising efficiencies. We even had to sadly downsize staff in affected areas like events, for example, because we could not host any events. STARS Lottery remains our single largest funding source. The calendar campaign decreased. Town offices across the province did offer to help and wanted to host having calendar sales at their town offices so that we would have that local presence. But of course, we had a second wave of COVID, and so then offices had to remain closed. So that didn't work as well as we had hoped. But town offices have all said that they plan to help us again this year as well with the new launch of the new calendar in July. So it still remains an unforeseeable future for our mainstay events. And of course, the long-awaited HEMS review, which was released by the government of Alberta last September. So they posed several recommendations regarding STARS to look at new air ambulance legislation in Alberta, for STARS to be named as a dedicated critical care provider in Alberta, and also increased operational support for STARS. But they have indicated that they will continue with consultations before any final decisions are made. So although Alberta Health Services recently made an announcement, they were increasing operational support for STARS to 50% of operations. This would equate to approximately $15 million per year. And it would bring Alberta government in line with what we're currently already receiving from Saskatchewan and Manitoba governments, but it is not confirmed when this increased operational support would be provided. And now we're also facing a new government. So in the meantime, STARS has been told that they will continue to receive the same 20% government funding. The lottery is the glue that keeps our STARS operational. Aviation and medical costs, they exceed 3/4 of all expenditures. And we continue to maintain 12% for base operations and administration costs. So CRA allows up to 35%. So we are really doing our very best and due diligence on that front. With increasing demands, it is our fundraising partners like yourselves who help us to maintain outstanding operational costs, as well as the dispatch and coordination of the Emergency Link Center, our mandatory education for our crews, innovation, as well as staying on the leading edge of technology. All of these enhance our ability to provide the highest level of critical care to Albertans. So let's have a look at a 5-year mission overview for Edson as well as within Yellowhead County up to May 30th of this year. So Yellowhead County overall sees approximately 50% scene call and 50% critical transfers from your local hospitals, showing the mission volume at approximately 1/3 each, Edson, Hinton, and rural areas. Now the difference there though, that where we would expand on the fact that it's largely a lot of rural areas is that number one, Edson and Hinton both have very busy hospitals within your area. 2021 reflects a significant increase in critical transfers from both hospitals. The majority of rural scene calls originate with patients being taken by ground ambulance to the local hospital from a scene call. And then of course, STARS is called to intervene. So your residents may also have been flown in neighboring municipalities. It's important to remember that emergencies do not always happen close to home. So your residents are served by 2 bases, both Edmonton and Grand Prairie. Yellowhead County overall sees an average of approximately 36 missions per year. And this represents over $260,000 per year in service value for your residents as well as your area. Your residents can take the comfort in knowing that they have access to STARS, whether it's in their daily travels or whether they're traveling across Western Canada. So let's have a look at your neighborhood. We all travel, we all commute, whether it's for family recreation activities or youth activities. When we compare the same 5-year time frame, the mission volume increases to over 1,200 missions within Yellowhead County and along with your bordering neighbors. Any of these missions may also include a town of Edson resident. John, could you please tell us about the new TransAlta Heliport project?
Yeah, sure can, Linda. Thank you for having us this evening. As you can imagine, many of your constituents and your members of your community, when they're hurt, their initial presentation to the hospital may not necessarily be that serious. Often if the STARS transport position is called, it's determined that they can come by ground ambulance and they'll start their journey from Hinton, Edson in this region on their way to Edmonton. It is not infrequent for our organization to receive call that those patients, as they're coming to Edmonton for a higher level of care, for lack of a better term, start to circle the drain and their condition deteriorates. This has been a very common challenge for our organization across the years. As patients are coming to Edmonton, EMS is calling our STARS Emergency Light Center. Our transport physicians are giving them advice, and they're using the highest level of skill they possibly can. We're trying to get to them and rendezvous on the highway. Over the last 2 years, there's been some challenges in Yellowhead County as well as Parkland County with available fire resources and resources in general being available for us to land safely adjacent or on the highway. We needed to come up with a solution because what was happening was Parkland County was being called kind of at the last minute to launch fire departments to land the helicopter safely, and they weren't able to do so because they're volunteer. It's not a criticism of the men and women that are on those systems. It's just a matter of our speed versus their speed and they being able to get to us quickly. So we needed to come up with a solution, and we needed to come up with one quickly. So we approached a number of different areas, and TransAlta stepped up to the plate. They had an old reclamated area that they could easily get accessibility to. We partnered with Burnco in Parkland County, and we created what is the first permanent rendezvous heliport in Alberta, and actually within our organization. So this is a beta concept that we're looking to kind of put right across the province. I think we potentially might have some opportunities at the forestry site near Nojak. And again, this really is, although it's in Parkland County, it truly was designed for your county and the residents of your city. It's for people that it's not for a scene call that occurs in that area. The fire departments are responding adequately. This is for a heads up notice. We need to rendezvous at this site. Thus far, it's been used 5 times. So it's been a very successful beta project, and we hope to kind of expand it across Western Canada in the months to come.
Thank you. So have a look, municipalities like yourselves, partnerships are vital to STARS. The green areas represent the municipal supporters across the entire province, including into northeastern BC. Municipalities recognize STARS as an essential service and as a part of their emergency protective services that they provide for their residents. So approximately 90% of Alberta rural and urban municipalities are united in regional partnerships, much like the towns of Edson and Hinton, along with your bordering regional neighbors. Majority of commitments are pledged at a minimum $2 per capita, and that ranges as high as $90 per capita across the province. Municipal leaders like yourselves include STARS in their annual budgets each year, which we greatly appreciate it because you provide that added piece of sustainability for operations. Together, across the province, we're generating over $2 million per year in sustainable operational funding. Many have moved recently to a fixed rate now, still on standing motion, very much like yourselves, which includes STARS annually in your budget. But this provides a further layer of sustainability rather than based on a per capita model, moving to a fixed rate. So the 7 municipalities that you see in the red boxes, now they have received logo recognition for decades of support of STARS. And we are looking forward to 2 more municipalities joining this recognition. So, the fleet campaign, it was a massive undertaking to even think of a $138 million fleet campaign. And then not knowing we were going to be in the midst of a global pandemic as well. We faced dire challenges with the previous aging fleet, and parts were no longer being made available. It really forced our hand that we had to tackle a fleet campaign. We're very grateful that federal, provincial, and municipal governments all stepped up to the plate, embraced the vision of having a new fleet that would serve for the next coming generations. So with the generosity of many individuals as well, largely from the corporate sector and municipal donors, we're proud to report that we have finalized the $138 million fleet campaign for 9 H-145 helicopters. Now, what you may not know is that with the recent increasing mission volume that we've seen the past 2 years, that we decided that we would also take advantage of the current pricing we had in place with our contract with Airbus, and we purchased a 10th helicopter as well. So that one is due to arrive late fall, I believe, of this year. We are anticipating that as soon as we are fully H-145 operational, we are in the midst of selling off the previous legacy fleet. So we're hoping that that will generate approximately $10 to $12 million. And we will use those funds to pay for the 10th helicopter. So of course, this depends on market value at the time and the rate of the US dollar. But we are excited that the final 2 of the 9 have arrived. One for Grand Prairie, we just had a welcoming event a couple weeks ago, and the other one for Edmonton. So both of those helicopters will be serving your residents. We have a welcoming event happening at the Edmonton base on June 21st. So please save the date because you will all be invited. If you're able to attend, we would love to have you, and you can see up close and personal this new machine. And you'll notice in the photo before we move on, the unique Fenestron tail. It provides increased maneuverability, decreased noise, as well as decreased vibration. John, please enlighten us about the H-145.
Yeah, so I'm very fortunate just coming off a month of training in Texas on this aircraft. And I've been with STARS for 20 years, been flying for about 27. I can say hands down that this is likely the most capable aircraft I'll probably fly in my career. I get lucky, I have a few more years left, but at 50 and change, I think this is probably one of the most capable aircraft that I'll certainly fly. A little bit faster than the BK-117, about a half an hour extra bit of range. So we'll be able to do Jasper Edmonton return unrefueled at night. We love to have fuel on board. It's always a nice addition. We partnered with the parks to make sure that we have that capability, both obviously at the airports in Edson and Hinton, but as well in Jasper. Certainly from an avionics standpoint, this comparing the BK would be like having a 1982 Subaru wagon compared to a brand new Subaru. It is that different. The interior of the aircraft in the front side, I'll talk about the back side, which is where the real magic happens. But in the front end, it's a fully automated coupled aircraft. It has synthetic vision, so we can see power lines, wires, towers and mountains, even though they may be shrouded in fog. It has a full autopilot, which will help with fatigue. And again, it's just going to be the next level of really weaponry that we need within our organization to fly a little bit further, a little bit faster. And I think we can probably just go to the next slide, which is where the real magic happens. So in the back, this is a world-class flying intensive care unit to be able to allow our team in the back to offer critical care. It's fully Wi-Fi capable, fully satellite data transfer capable, which means that in real time, as Glenda alluded to a few minutes ago, our team will be able to have a patient hooked up to a myriad of different pieces of equipment. And that information will be transferred in real time via Wi-Fi to the transport physicians back at the STARS Emergency Link Center, or if our STARS transport physicians are at home, to their iPads. So they will be able to give real-time diagnostic information along with body cams to just see exactly what's going on in the back of the aircraft. And again, STARS is the first organization in Canada to carry blood on board. We're the first organization in Canada to be using the new iPad Pro Butterfly ultrasound pieces of equipment. And again, we're looking around the world to find out what we can put on board this aircraft to change the lives of Albertans in their highest time of need. So it's going to be an incredible game changer for us. And really what it's going to allow us to do is to offer that critical care, urban setting medicine to anybody, regardless of where they are in the province. Yeah, it's a real great step for us.
Thank you. So in closing, STARS, we've been serving Albertans since 1985. It says another updated statistics, more than 50,000 missions have been flown now. And more importantly, no cost to our patients. We thank you, Town of Edson, for your life-saving partnership with STARS since 2016. Your previous support you've always maintained $2 per capita, and we really appreciate that. Our request is asking that you would consider a slight increase in order to move to a fixed rate, which will provide that extra layer of sustainability and continue on a standing motion, meaning that you allow for STARS to be in your budget each year. It's really important that as we move forward, the call volume is increasing, the demand for STARS is increasing. We're trying to evolve into more opportunities to provide critical care anywhere. And so with that said, we do also need to rely on that layer of sustainable support that we know we can count on every year. So in closing, a life is saved every day, and it's partnerships that make it possible. You make it possible. You are STARS' reason for being, and we really appreciate your consideration of our request.
All right, well, thank you very much, Glenda and John, for making the trip out and the fantastic presentation. Live by the airport, so I get to hear when STARS lands, and always like watching the helicopter coming in, but also thinking about who you're transporting, and certainly you've seen a lot of that over the last couple of years. As for your request, something that we certainly can consider as we enter into our 2023 budget process moving forward. So council, I'll open the floor to questions. Councillor Moore and then Councillor Scarr.
Through the chair to either or. So how much has increased fuel costs affected things? And the second question would be, is this new helicopter more fuel efficient than the older one?
So yes and yes. So fuel costs, obviously, as you see today, are up. Jet fuel goes up at very, very much the same rate. One of the positives with our partnership with Alberta Health Services and the government as a whole is they pay for our fuel. Right. So that being said, the Saffron engines that are on board the aircraft that we're currently flying they're a technological leap well beyond what we were using before. And they're highly fuel efficient for the amount of horsepower that is on board those engines. They're equating to about 2,000 horsepower, but the fuel burn is about 20 kilos per hour more than we would have in the PK. So a substantial power increase for a marginal fuel cost. And to answer your other question, yeah, call volume is way up. And we'll just continue to sell off our fleet. We just sold 4 of the aircraft last week, which has been very positive. And we'll continue to make sure that we cut costs where we can. All we can do is anticipate the future and plan for it accordingly.
Councilor Sharp.
First of all, I have to say thank you two for your work as well. My question is, I'm not saying the Alberta government isn't helping us, but when you mentioned that you're lobbying to get them up to 50% to the other provinces, is there anything we can do as council to help support to maybe move that budget number higher?
I would say at this time, no, because they've already made the announcement that they are looking to increase to the 50% of the operational cost, right? So there is still that other added cost where we still need our life-saving partners.
Right.
At this current time, I think it's important that we just kind of wait and see, that year is not finished yet. So they just have not told us when to expect this. So we don't know if it will be this year. If it's not this year, and then we get a new government and we may have to start all over again, that might be an opportunity when we would reach out to our other councils to ask for support.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Questions? Councilor Byron and Councilor Levin.
Thanks to the chair, Susanna. Thank you for the presentation. That was really fantastic. You mentioned earlier in the presentation that about 50% or about that of the calls came from Alberta, whereas that's not where all the population was or something around that, right at the beginning you mentioned Alberta having a few more calls.
Out of the 10, averaging 10 missions per day.
Yes.
Across 6 bases in 3 provinces.
Yes.
But at least 50% or just a bit more is in Alberta alone.
So do you have any reasons why Alberta has more missions than other provinces?
A lot of it has to do with population.
Okay.
There's more people that live in the Edmonton region outside of Edmonton than there is in Manitoba, for instance.
Okay.
We have 3 bases in Alberta versus 2 in Saskatchewan, 1 in Manitoba.
Right.
Yeah, and Alberta is a feeder province for a lot of people traveling, and a lot of people play in Manitoba, particularly on the western flank. Right. To give you a case in point, in the last 24 hours, just in Alberta, we've had 14 missions.
Oh, wow.
So it varies, right? There's no rhyme or reason sometimes. A Tuesday in February can be one of the busiest days of the year. There just is no rhyme or reason.
Interesting.
And plus, we also serve northeastern and southeastern BC from Alberta.
Oh, okay.
So from Calgary and from the Grand Prairie,
Okay.
Grand Prairie base. But at the same time, northern BC, as you saw on the green map, is doing their part in being a supporter of the services that we provide for them.
Thank you.
Councilor Levin.
Through the chair, I know when you guys first came here way back when I was on council, we did support you 100%, and I still support you in that. I'm just going to say that the more equipment you put on board, you're going to get a bigger helicopter. But anyway, question is, do you have any problem getting your medical staff to be on board for the hospital? Is there really heavy criteria for them to be able to fly on the aircraft with you with the pilots and that?
From a weight standpoint?
Well, how do you get your medical staff? Like, do they go through a process and do you just pick them, or you don't have enough of them? Or
It is quite a thorough process. I would say average. So I would be one of the youngest pilots in Edmonton, and I've been there for 20 years. So from a medical standpoint, a minimum expectation of a nurse at STARS would be at least 4 years of critical care experience in an ICU and at least 2 years of experience in an emergency room in an urban setting. That would be minimum. From a paramedic standpoint, at a minimum, you need to be an advanced care paramedic for at least 6 years. And then when both the nurses and the paramedics come to STARS, we give them a 4.5-month academy, which will give them 500 additional hours of critical care time. And then they ride along as a third on board the back of the helicopter for 2 months. Then they have an oversight process for an additional month. So it takes them almost a year to get ready. And these are not inexperienced men and women coming to our organization. So to amplify their skill set to that next level of critical care, they will never say it to you, but by the time they're done with the program in the STARS Academy, they're probably in the top 2% in North America of pre-hospital care.
So do you have a turnover at all with
Not very big, and the list to get in is very long. Yes.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's an interesting transition for them because they transitioned from unionized to non-unionized. Stars is non-unionized, but the list is long, and we're very fortunate that we have an incredible pool of men and women to choose from. I think we just hired another 10 or 11, and of that 10 or 11, there was over 300 applicants. So we're very fortunate that we have just incredible talent coming through the door, both in the front and the back.
That's great. Thank you.
Anybody else? Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Well, I know you probably want to head back, or I don't know if you're going to stay for the rest of the meeting. I know you brought cake, so.
That was just continue our tradition, right? And so you can please celebrate John's 20 years at Stars.
Excellent, congratulations. Thank you so much, and we'll take your request under consideration for sure.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. We look forward to bringing you the next update, because there's always lots more information to come. Okay, so I did bring you a calendar as well for your office, and a little tidbit that maybe you would like to have a poster to show your residents that they have a brand new helicopter coming to serve them.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you so much
Thank
for
you
your
so much.
time.
All right, we're going to move on to our next delegation, our RCMP annual work plan with Staff Sergeant Christian Lyle, Detachment Commander and Chief of Police from the town of Edson.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Thank you very much for having me tonight. Yes, I was asked to come and do a quick presentation on the annual performance plan for the year 22-23. After the consultation I made starting in November, talking with youth council, different groups in the community, 2 town halls, the plan that we've decided to come up for the year. Now, I like to always remind everybody, the annual performance plan is never the only thing we're going to be working on. It's what we're going to be trying to put more focus, try different strategies to address some of the issues that we are encountering as a police service in the community. So it's never just the roadmap that we're going to use, it's basically a strategic plan. So for the year 22-23, the 3 priorities that we have identified for the community. First one, asked by everybody, is basically police community relations, communications, police visibility. That came up probably number 1 in all the consultation that we did, is basically we would like you to be present to community events, be in touch with the community, share some information, transparency. So that's our priority number 1. Priority number 2 is crime reduction. Obviously, it's our job. We are focusing on thefts for this year. Previous year for Edson, we had break and enters. This year, we wanted to focus on thefts. And the 3rd priority is training. So if I break it down a little bit more, so for our community contacts, the measures that we've set for ourselves, last year we set 24 community contact that the RCMP would have over the year. We've raised that up to about 30. We did way more than 24 last year, and we will probably do more than 30 this year, especially now that the COVID restrictions are lifted. It's a lot easier for us to be involved in activities and actually create some of our own activities or events for the public to attend to. So some of the strategies that we have under the initiatives, participating into community events, media releases through newspapers, radios, presence in school, youth engagement. So far, a few little things that we've done. Recently, we had our bike rodeo on May 28th. Great success. About 100 kids came over and they loved it, riding their bicycles through cones and interacting with the police. Like it was great to see them. They were like smiling ears to ears. We participated with some members of town council, with youth council, to the graffiti project, trying to get rid of some of the graffitis and through the community. We participated at last weekend at the Fire Fit. I think a group of my members took on a challenge to try to beat the firefighters at their own game. But we came close. We'll train. Yes, we had a kindergarten group that came to the detachment for a visit. We have another 3 groups that are coming next week. So we're trying to, really connect with the community from different levels. Today I was at the Pioneer Cabin for Senior Week. So, trying to reach as many layers of our population as possible, listening to their needs, talking with them, and having that positive interaction with the police. We're always calling something is going bad. We like to be there too when things are going well and have that positive conversation. Now, if we look at crime reduction, we've set a few measures for that one. The main one is reducing thefts. So for the town of Edson, basically, we would like to see a reduce of 10% of our thefts from last year. So if I have a number, and when I'm saying thefts, I'm talking about theft over $5,000, thefts under $5,000, and theft of motor vehicles, all three included. So last year, if we look at those, we had about 380 for the town of Edson. So about 10%, we're looking at 342. So we would like to be under the 340-ish. Second measure that we have, or another measure, would be the same thing in the Yellowhead County, reducing the thefts. Our proactive patrols, also, we had a goal of 1,000 patrols last year. We bumped that up to 1,200 this year. We should be on track to do the 1,200 patrols. Now that's town and county combined. And then a new one that we've added for this year, because it came up through the consultation at different levels, is basically having a bigger impact on drugs. So basically the measure for this one is to have our GIS section conduct 6 self-generated drug investigation resulting in some charges. Could be either catching someone dealing drugs or doing a search warrants through residents known as selling drugs and things like this, but having 6 like this over the year. Some of the strategies that we are using to achieve those goals, prolific offender management, so doing the curfew check, finding out who's causing trouble in the community and basically keeping tabs on them. Some traffic enforcement. It's surprising to what you can find by stopping some vehicles. 99% of our traffic stops is law-abiding citizens that are just, for the moment, maybe speeding a little bit, whatnot. But there's also that 1% that is out there that is nice when we pull them over and we find sometimes stolen properties, or they're suspended, or there's warrants, and then we can address that on location. Working with confidential sources, really tied in with the GIS and the drug world, basically getting information on who's who in the zoo and who's selling drugs. So far, we've been having some results with that. Joint operations with different units. We have a crime reduction unit for Western Alberta District based out of Grand Prairie. They came down here a couple of times last year, planning on having them to come back here using the bait vehicle. We did in March this year. Vehicle was up for almost 4 weeks and nobody stole the bait vehicle, unfortunately. We're planning on having it out again.
Droid steal me on it.
Sorry, what's that?
Put steal me on it. I don't know.
I'll be honest with you, the last week I thought, okay, I'm gonna go steal it myself and at least we'll have a little bit of action, but no. So, but yes, we've tried that. We're thinking of using what we call the DUST team, the Drug Undercover Street Team, to come to Edson and basically try what we call some cold buys and stuff like that to see if we can catch a few drug dealers. And also working with the community, for example, with COP and trying some, joint operations with them and efforts to try to reduce crime, identify hot spots and areas and whatnot in the community. So that's basically what we're going to be focusing for crime reduction. And the last priority that we have is training. So it's more of an in-house priority, but the results are basically felt in the community, and it's to equip our members with the tools and the training and the skills that they need to do their job. The 4 courses that we have identified for this year that we would like to see happening. First one is radar laser. Due to COVID, we were not able to get radar laser training. Training was canceled. So now I have a lot of new members of the detachment that are needing that training, and we're fortunate the training is it's going on right now. We have 2 members that are being trained, 8 this week. Also, we're looking at having a quad course. So when we have either lost people or suspects that are fleeing through bushes and whatnot, we have a different means to track them down. The CEW, so conducted energy weapon tool, the taser, New members are not trained from the academy with that tool, so it has to be done locally. So we're trying to get that course for them. And the last one, the bike course. Perfect tool to tie in with our community contact, having the members patrolling some of the trails that we have here. We have a wonderful like bike park here at Wilmar Park. Riding around, getting in touch with the population, also keeping an eye on what's going on. So far, in terms of training, we're having the radar laser right now. A month ago, we had what we call the ASD, the alcohol screening device course put on. 2 members have been trained on this to be able to tackle impaired driving on our streets. So that's basically our annual plan for the year. Any questions on our priorities, plans, initiatives?
Council, you have any questions? Councillor Schnard.
Actually, thanks for your report. When you said your goal is to drop theft by 10%, is there a plan for that? Educate the public, or so what would be the goal? How would we drop 10% of that?
So that's basically it. So basically, through our prolific offender management, through having GIS working on the drugs, to having like the 1,200 patrols being done in the area, trying to put some pressure on the people that are committing thefts to stop, or if not, to get caught, right? So that's basically the plan for it. Education is always a plan or part of any strategies that the RCMP has. It's unfortunate nowadays. We have to be careful. We have to lock our doors. We can't leave things outside of our residence overnight. We're taking a chance when we're doing that. So of course, yes, education is part of the plan to try to achieve that goal. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Council Moore.
Through the chair. You were mentioning events that you can go to now because COVID's lifted. Are you planning in any time in the near future an open house at the detachment where people could come in?
The short answer is no. I know Drake Valley did one not that long ago. I'm not saying that it's not something that we cannot do. We can certainly do it. We don't have that planned. No. If it's something that the community would like to have, and I'm more than happy to do it. Next week I have 3 classes of kindergarten that are coming to see the detachment. So I have no issues if we have a day where the parents can come and have a look as well, right? Yeah. So yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, the reason I mention that is because I remember one a few years ago where we cooked hamburgers there, a part of COP, and it was a huge crowd. We could barely keep up with the crowd. I thought I was going to poison somebody with my cooked hamburgers because they didn't seem to be cooked long enough. The demand was just so much there. But
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've worked like when I worked in Drayton Valley, that's something that they were doing, and it was a popular event. I agree. Something you can look into, absolutely. Yeah.
Council Revin.
Through the chair, to Staff Sergeant there. I did attend your bike rodeo, and it was very well attended. The kids were happy, everything else. And I don't know if you touched on it, but you said something about you're going to do bike patrols. Because I know they had asked that down there, and I was down there. And then the other second question I'll get right now is they asked if they would be able to put on a motorbike course for beginners to learn how to ride the motorbike.
The motorbike course, I'd be very interested in that. Yes. So unfortunately, with the RCMP, if you want to ride a pedal bike, you have to have the RCMP pedal bike course. Yeah. We have the pedal bike, we have 4, we're equipped, we're ready to do it. I just don't have the member trained to do this. That's why it's part of our annual performance plan. We actually made some inquiries today as to how we could have the bike course given to some of our members. Of course, like any other organization, there's some budget restraint, and we are right now we're looking at how Edson could get it. It's in the works. So right now, I can't say that no, we cannot do any bike patrols, unfortunately. Now for the other piece, the motorcycle course, it's very technical. We do have a motorcycle section. They get their training in, I want to say it's in Ontario. I want to say in Elmer, Ontario. But it's for them to know how to ride a motorcycle in the police enforcement style of riding. which does not translate in us kind of being able to pass along that information to the public. So no, that's something that we will not be able to do.
Well, I know when you, past years, when you did have your force go out on the bikes, the public really liked it. They commented all the time. See you guys out on your bikes with the yellow vests on and everything else and that. And I'll just make a comment here that the Pioneer Cabin today, the seniors are very happy to see you come there and be introduced and walk around and talk to them. They thought it was great. They don't get to see you guys very often, but when you did come, they loved it there. So thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you. And it was my pleasure. And as I mentioned to some of them, it was very difficult for me when I moved here in the community. It was COVID. It was difficult to build those relationships and attend those certain locations and whatnot. But now that some of the restrictions are lifted, that we have a nice summer coming up, I figured it was a time to come, and I will certainly go back. The sandwiches and the soup are fantastic. So it's a plus.
Well, they said Tuesday you come $7 for soup and sandwich. You're welcome anytime.
Works for me.
All right, anybody else have any further questions or comments? No, thank you very much, and thanks for the engagement of your members as well. I know they've been very active out in the community. I've seen them at the spray park, talking to some kids riding bikes and doing those sorts of things, which I think is really positive in our community. And just seeing all the people that were out at bike rodeo and then at fire fits and the graffiti cleanup was great to see. So thank you very much, and hopefully we'll see some of those numbers drop.
Yes, that's the goal. Absolutely. Thank you very much.
All right. We have no reading of bylaws. We will move on to reports from administration. Can I get a motion that council direct administration to prepare a letter of support conditionally committing up to $1 million for the library renovation and expansion project contingent on the library attaining additional grants and sponsorship, which will reduce the town's contribution. Councilor Taylor will make that motion, and I will hand things over to Mr. Bob Beck, Director of Community and Protective Services. Also a diehard Edmonton Oilers fan.
I think we all are.
Thanks, Dan. Thank you, Mayor Zahara. Just a quick presentation. It's not very long. It reflects all the items that are already in your request for decision, but we know that some of the public don't always get to see those reports. So we'll just run through a few of the points that we were trying to make. The overview of the facility. The Edson Library is a town-owned facility. An overview of the facility was provided in the 2017 Community Services Strategic Plan that was presented to council and adopted. And it was a discussion of what the library facility was at that time. 12,000 square foot facility constructed in 1979. The facility had seen no major upgrades since that time. There were a number of issues addressed, and some have been resolved and a number have not. There had been expansion plans proposed to the library numerous times over the years and really have not moved forward. I'm not going to read each of these items, but this is a brief recounting of the outreach that the library board has made to council since 2021. And there's been a number of updates provided to council, introducing their goals and apprising council of their status along the way. So the current request to council was to commit to funding for up to $1 million for the renovation and expansion project. On the condition that matching grants are obtained, the board representatives intend to apply for the CFIT grant, which we call it, which has an application deadline of June 15th, which is why it's on tonight's agenda. Our recommendation that council direct administration to prepare a letter of support, conditionally committing up to $1 million for the library renovation and expansion project, contingent on the library attaining additional grants and sponsorship, which will reduce the town's contribution. So funding sources alluded to in the report, up to $1 million in expenditures over the course of the project. These funds could be generated from future taxation revenue sharing reserve, or civic cultural center reserve. Projected 2022 year-end balances for these reserves are 3.61277770 and $3 million respectively. At the last meeting that the board presented May, they made a number of additional requests. We'd like to touch on them. They asked for assistance identifying suitable grants and potentially helping with grant applications if required. We can certainly advise of additional grants. We've been kind of successful in our other projects with accessibility grants, which are received from the federal government. So we would put them in touch with any grants that we were able to access. The next point, clarification of the tendering process and associated roles and responsibilities. We believe because this is a town-owned facility, there is an onus on us to actually participate in this project to a large extent. We'd have to figure that out, but it is a town-owned facility. Engagement with Yellowhead County, we'll note that the library is not specifically included in the intermunicipal collaboration framework adopted with Yellowhead County. And energy improvements at the library. Actually, those are being addressed right now with the library board and Mr. Fisher and Brendan Real. So, any questions, Mr. Chair?
Right, we'll open the floor to any questions, comments, or concerns. Councilor Taylor.
Through the mayor to administration council. I'm on team library, not only just the board, but I am supportive of the motion. This facility needs an upgrade. So many of our facilities do. The tour we had, I had one when I was on the board, I had one with council, was very comprehensive and addressed a number of safety and accessibility concerns. Not to mention, this is a very busy facility, and it was seen through the data that's collected through the board. Seen through the data, I think it was the 2017 needs assessment survey that was done, that it's the second busiest town building behind the Leisure Center. So what the board has sort of constructed, in my mind, is the most cost-effective sort of solution to the problem outside of building a new facility. I know that was proposed about a decade ago, and the cost was infinitely higher. It was 11 or 12 million, if I recall. So on the tour, the questions that council had were answered extraordinarily well, and that was thanks to Sheila Buckle and Michael Baird, who had all the answers lined up. It's almost like Sheila had done this in like a previous life, which is very beneficial to the board, that she had a lot of those answers. So I was impressed with that. And if we're not willing to do this, I mean, it has to be done, and the costs on this are only going to get higher as time goes on. So I like this project. I think it's cost effective. It's a way we can address a need within our asset management plan. The only question I have, and I don't know whether it's something that can be answered, but something to think about. And it's not a question of if, it is probably a question of when the project comes back over budget. We need to have a plan. Because the plan can't be, let's just walk away. That cannot be the plan. And I know I've touched base with some board members already in terms of having that backup plan. But from what we've seen thus far, like everything seems to come back. The majority of projects seem to come back over budget, and we just can't keep walking away. We have to find a way, a solution to make that work. And I don't know whether that question has an answer, but that now I've put it out there that we need to be thinking about it. That being said, I'm not only just supportive of the motion, I'm extremely excited about the motion of tackling a town facility at a cost-effective way and seeing an upgrade to a very used and needed facility. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Councilor Taylor. Councilor Barr.
Thanks, through the chair to administration. I'm also in support of this motion for the reasons that Councilor Taylor was just mentioning. My question is regarding engagement with the county. Have we had any preliminary discussions with their administration to kind of have a bigger chat about the funding I guess, considerations that the county has with their other facilities and that we don't have an agreement set in place for this facility.
Go ahead, CO Beveridge.
Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Breyer, we have had discussions with county administration because this is not addressed within our ICF. This would be a direct request to the county from the library board. So that would be the process that would be followed for this.
Councilor Schnarr.
Just to help answer the question, I'm also in favor of the library. But if we're looking at a $3 million cost, if we come in 20 or 30% higher, it's not millions. So I also agree, this building is very well used. So if they're asking for 3 million and it comes back at 1.5, 500,000 over budget is a realistic number we can afford. So we do have money in savings for buildings coming up. So we'll wait and see on the numbers. I hope this project can go ahead because I agree it's very well used. And as part of our plan to reuse our buildings. Don't bring it in too far, but it's margin, I think we can handle that.
All right, anybody else, any further comments, questions, or concerns? I'm in full support of this. You know, since I've lived in Edson, the library has been a topic of discussion. I'm not a library user myself, but the days that I do go into the library, which usually are in the evenings, it's amazing how many people are in there utilizing the facility. You have kids, you have new Canadians, new immigrants to our community, seniors, and a lot of people trying to, you know, upgrade their education. You have low income that are, you know, using the Wi-Fi and doing those sorts of things. And it's no longer just a library, it's a community hub. And I think our library board has done a phenomenal job and our librarian to really enhance the programming over there. And I think this is an opportunity to do something that's cost effective. To Councillor Taylor's points, yeah, the cost of these things keep going up and up and up. And the longer we wait, the more it's going to cost. So I think we need to push forward and hopefully the tender is coming at a reasonable price, and if not, then we need to figure out how we tackle that. But we can't continue to afford not addressing these issues. We see that in our asset management plan, and this aligns with our strategic plan as well that council just passed. And I would say too that that if we want a vibrant community, that these are the things that we need to attract and retain people in our communities. So I am in support of this and do hope that it goes forward. I know we do have some concerns internally as a part of the town of Edson for the library folks that are here that we do have some capacity issues right now because we have a ton of projects on the go. So I do see in administration's memo that we probably would have to get an external firm to assist us with that. I am in support of that. We can't continue to overload our staff, but we also need to continue to move our community forward. So I will be voting in favor. If there's no any other comments or questions or concerns, I will call the question. All those in favor? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Can I get a motion, please, at council? Thank you, Bob, for your presentation. Sorry, what's that? What did you say?
She said, go.
Thank you. Can I get a motion, please, that council accept administration's report on the harmonization of school and playground zones as information? Councillor Schnard, and we have our Director of Protective Services, Mr. Alan Schramm, with us.
Well, good evening. Good evening, council and mayor, and I just want to make a comment that our mayor does look very good in blue and orange. Thank you very much. So,
I have also seen you in some red colors, and you look fantastic in a plain.
and you have.
Maybe we should stop doing these bets.
I'm glad to come before council, to just bring you guys up to speed, give you a little bit of an update on the harmonization of our school and playground zones. This has been a project that we've been looking at for quite some time. And I think it's important that we keep council apprised as to where we're at and how we're moving forward with this project. Back in January of this year, council had adopted bylaw 2273, which is an amendment to our existing traffic bylaw. We had to do that amendment really to give us the authorities to change these things. And really what that did in that bylaw, it allows us to designate specifically playground zones
and to establish times for those playground zones, which would establish the bylaw from 7:30 a.m. to 9 p.m., 7 days a week, 365 a year. And that's what we really needed to be able to make this harmonization happen. And we also had to give the town manager the authority and the ability to designate those specific playground zones within that bylaw. So we made those changes. And we've already had council's general support on this moving all along. So that step had to be done. Following that passing of that bylaw, we thought we would take the opportunity to get a little more input into it to make sure that we address all the stakeholders. We felt that was really important. We reached out once again to our RCMP staff sergeant. We want to reach out to all the school principals. We think that it's very key because it really has a big impact on the schools. And we also want to do a little bit more with the general public, just to make sure that we give the general public an opportunity to engage. And that's really important to make sure that they have the opportunity to give some more feedback into this project because it's going to affect a lot of our residents. So I'll start with the detachment information we got from Sergeant Delisle. And really they had indicated they have really good, strong support for the project, but they did give us some recommendations at some of the zones that we previously had. And we really took these into consideration because we thought it was important getting the RCMP perspective. And one of those was, number one, consider reducing the length of the different ring one on 55th Street. Originally, it would have covered a pretty broad area. Took that into consideration and kind of adopted his changes. We looked at reducing the length of the one of the Glenwood Park on 5A, not the main park, but the Glenwood Park on 5A and 68th Street. It had covered about a 2-block span, so we did shorten that up on the recommendation again, once again, Staff Sergeant Delisle. We did add a section at the Leisure Center, which was on the south side of the Leisure Center on 10th Ave. Again, at the recommendation of the RCP, and we'll show you some more maps on these as we get through the presentation. And another big one, which we kind of an oversight on our behalf, was really add the section on 54th Street and 5th Ave by the skateboard park, by the rotary skate park. That had never really been a playground zone, and it is frequented all the time with youth and children, especially during the playground time. So again, these recommendations were fully supported by administration, and we did include them into our final plan. The next one was a public input. So we did a public survey. We issued it out there earlier this year. We left it open for approximately 3 weeks and it closed on the 31st of March of this year. The disappointing thing was we only had like 14 responses we received, and they had varied comments. Some were very supportive, some were in between, some were against for different reasons. And we did circulate that all within your package. You had a good opportunity to see what those comments were. When we reviewed all those comments that we received, it seemed like the biggest challenge was the times that we were proposing, the 7:30 in the morning till 9 at night. So, and that's fine. We appreciate that. We did reach out to every school. I had our enforcement services team actually visit every school, talk to the principals about what we're doing. Had that discussion, very positive. We also left them a copy of the survey, said, hey, take your time, fill this out. If you have some really big concern, this is your opportunity to get that input back. Unfortunately, we received no responses at all from our school principals. But again, on the one-on-one, they were very positive and very supportive to our enforcement services team when we went and met with them. This just gave you an overview map, and we'll break this down a little bit of all the playground zones that we are going to be addressing through these changes. Understand these are all existing playground and school zones that were within the community, with the exception of the one that the skateboard park, which we added. So every one of these are already existing, so we didn't add any new additions. We'll start with our Glenwood Park one here. The one on the left is on my left, is the Glenwood Park, which is the main park, and the Yellowhead Christian Kiona School. This is a combination school playground zone. So again, it's just transitioning it into that harmonization. And the other one is at 5A Park on 68th and 5A, and we've talked about that. And again, it was just a reduction. Previously, it had that zone running all the way from 5th Ave and all the way over to 69th Street. So we just shortened it up to really be more practical as to where that playground is. The Leisure Center area, this is another one we did, and the only change on this one was the addition of the playground zone on 10th Ave on the Leisure Center side and 49th Street, and then extending it all the way back to 49th Street on 49th as well. So, and again, it's just a little bit of expansion on that. Again, we know our recreation facility is a busy area with schools and evenings and weekends all the time with youth and children. So, and again, this is a recommendation of our RCMP staff sergeant, and we felt it was very appropriate to add that to our location. Kinsman Park and the schools. Again, most of these are already existing. The only addition that we are proposing to add is if you look on 7th Avenue and 45th Street, circling over to 6th Avenue, we just kind of finished that loop. there, and that kind of goes past that little church in there. The reason we wanted to add that in is we found, especially in the wintertime, the kids use that hill for tobogganing. So there's a lot of kids use that for traveling from the schools over to Kinsman Park, and the areas you get in the winter for tobogganing. It just made sense. The reality is you should not be able to reach 50 kilometers in that area. Anyway, it's very short. So we just thought it made a lot of sense to just tag it as a playground zone. It'll eliminate anybody from trying to race through that area when there's a lot of potential children in the area. Griffiths Park, and this is Griffiths Park, Bandy School. It's already, once again, it's already school playground zone in that area. The addition to this one was again by the Rotary Skateboard Park on 54th Street and on 5th Avenue from 53rd at the recommendation of the RCMP. We thought that was very appropriate to tag those in there as well. And this also shows the existing playground zone on 56th Street in front of the daycare, and that's already a designated playground zone. We have the West Haven and Tiffin Rink area on this one. The West Haven school zone, it's already 40 kilometer in there, leading up to the school zone, which drops down to 30. So we're just going to convert that all to 30, make it the playground school zone, and it extends up into where's that other park on the west side of West Haven as well. In the past, there was like a half a block between the school zone and the playground zone, which made no sense. Just make it all playground zone for consistency. And then on the Tiffin Rink, again, we shortened that up quite a bit at the recommendation of the RCMP, just to capture that community rink where most of the kids are getting to cross the street, get to that community rink there in the winter. And they use it in the summer as well as a green space. Current status, we have received quotes on all the signs, and we're really ready to place the order, well within our budget. So that's very good. On the approval of the town manager, the zones will be converted starting early in the summer when school is out, with the aim of completing this project before beginning school in September. We will work closely with our operations department. We've already engaged them a lot, and a lot of the signs are just going to require really moving off of one post to put in new signs. There will be a few new post installations, but for the most part, we're going to use existing signposts that are already there with school or playground zones, just updating the signs to new. And then really a strong messaging campaign, which we've already had conversations with our comms group that as we do these changes, we want to make sure that we really message it out really strong that this is what's happening so the general public is aware of it, so there's no surprises. And that's my presentation. Any questions?
Right, council, from the floor to questions, Councillor Meyer and Councillor Pisichny.
Thanks through the chair to administration. Thanks for your work on this. It's been a long time coming that when we initially started talking about this playground zone transition. Couple comments regarding some of the feedback and the previous discussion that we had here. I feel that we're missing a couple of the zones that council talked about previously, and I was just hoping that they would be included. That includes the 10th Avenue rink, which is just south of or southwest of West Haven there. School, the Hillendale playground, which I believe doesn't have any signs right now, and the Tiffin 18th Avenue Park between 53rd and 54th, which I guess was listed in those comments. So I was kind of hoping that we would have those locations in there as well, instead of just looking at only the current playground zones that we have within our existing structure. And the compilation of the public comments, although we only received 14, when I'm reading through them, some of them are very, very well thought out. You know, we could have received 100 comments that were maybe of really poor quality, but I felt that these 14 comments did have a lot of quality in them and a lot of thought. People really put some effort into that, and I think that it's worth using some of that and making some adjustments to the zones that we have. And I know the times are listed on there quite varied. And last time I wasn't in favor of the times, but that passed by council. And I think with the new information from the public consultation, I think it's maybe worth revisiting that. So.
Councillor Pisichny.
Through the chair to administration. It's funny, I have a lot of the same comments. The one was the rink in West Haven, the other one we talked about, those two other locations as well. And the one common theme in the comments, and since we passed the bylaw, the common theme in here is why 7:30, why wouldn't you make it 8? I drive through a school zone every single day to work, so I've been watching that zone every day to see how many people are in there, and I'm lucky to see anybody in the zone. The only time I have is if I'm touched late and getting close to 8 o'clock. So the only time I ever see anybody in that zone. So, and if it is just one person. So, and then when we compare to the comparators, most municipalities start at eight AM. You could argue the evenings to the high heavens, because how do you find the happy balance between winter and summer? So I wouldn't argue with the evening one, because you know, our sunset, if the 1 hour after sunset, that could be 11:30 at night in the summer. So I just think that I like the idea of a little bit later, like at 8 o'clock. To me makes more sense. But I agree with Councillor Byer on those other zones, because we did talk about that, and they're not addressed in there.
Councillor Taylor.
Through the mayor to council administration, looking at the 7:30 to 8 o'clock start time, schools are busy places. It's not uncommon. I have drama rehearsal starting at 7:30. Our football team begins at 6:30 in the morning. And it's not a question of necessarily seeing anyone. I like this plan because it's proactive. Through the staff sergeant's report, we've had 0 pedestrians being hit in these zones. But the idea of being proactive is that we want to keep it 0. We're trying to keep people safe. And, you know, at first, yes, going back a few months ago, I saw the 7:30 and it was a little jarring at first. But then I began to think, how many programs at our school begin before 8 AM and students walk? It is actually, I've gone to the school at 7:30 and there's already 50 kids there because they're taking part in various different programs. I assure you, the schools are using 7:30 is a very reasonable time. It is. So I'm in support of that. And swinging the other way to 9 o'clock, the schools are used until there's many practices going till 8 o'clock or 8:30, right? And we have events going on to the evening. So I'm in support of the 7:30 times.
All right, Councillor Sharp.
I'm also in support of the 7:30. I do appreciate the fact some of the zones are missed, but we're working on this for a long time. It's not written in stone. We need to move forward with this. If we capture 95% of the zones, we have option to add in some of the ones. And if people do feel strongly at 7:30, as far as I'm concerned, it could be 3 kids walking to school in the entire thing. And if 7:30 saves them, it's well worth it. The 9 o'clock at night, we could argue is at 8:30. I have to agree with Councillor Taylor as well, is that sometimes there is functions, but it doesn't have to be 300 kids out if we save 1 or 2, because some of the kids are slowly walking to school due to daycare. So the parents are leaving and the kids, some of the kids take their time walking to school. So if the 7:30 saves 1 kid, I'm in favor. I did read the comments, but we can try it. It's a good proactive, and if it's overwhelming and people want to change it, we can change it later.
CEO Beveridge and then Councillor Bennett. Go ahead, CEO Beveridge.
Mr. Mayor, just to address council, I think one of the things is that through the bylaw, there is the authority, it's delegated to adjust the zones as we see fit. Just the overall scope of this project, I know this has been a long-standing project. And so it's one of the things to finally get this moving and get this off the ground. But we most definitely, those times, we'd spend a lot of times discussing what times were, what times were best to put forward. That's something that's within the bylaw that we can bring back and adjust. And as far as the zones, that's something that we can do as well. So just to know, this report is for information, just to make sure that council was aware of where we're at, and with what the information we had gathered from the public consultation that did occur, as well as consultation with other stakeholders such as the schools as well as the RCMP.
All right, Councillor Bennett.
Through the chair of the administration, I do support this. I've had a lot of people talk about it when they seen it came out from the town, and many places I've been, they didn't have a problem with the time and that. They, like Council Precision, Council Byer said, they were hoping to be some other ones in there, and our CEO Beveridge explained that, they can do this. I know in Hillendale, I've been up there lots, I go up there lots, and especially by that park up there. The kids are racing through there, they're actually drifting around the corners, and it goes on just about all night. I've been up there till 11, 12 o'clock at night visiting friends and family, whatever, and they just go crazy up there, and it starts in the morning and it goes all night just about. And they're not only racing there with the cars, they got their quads out and stuff like that. And it's, so, yeah, but I agree that, no, we move ahead with it, and if we can add, that's great.
Or any other comments, questions, or concerns? I'm in favor of moving forward. I too have, kind of watched things after we passed the bylaw, and I appreciate one of the comments here that, just having an 8 to 8 might be the most effective way to communicate it. So it's not the hill I'm gonna die on. 7:30, 8 o'clock really is a small window, and in the evenings, you go by Griffiths Park at 11:30 at night and there's 50 kids there playing basketball. So you can have those arguments all day long. I think the consistency is what we're trying to aim for here. And so when we talk about some of those zones we're talking about, I would like to make sure that once we launch this, that they're all set in place, so we're not piecemealing after the fact. So we only have to take the hit once when people are upset over certain things, instead of having to deal with this over and over again. I do appreciate the work that's gone into this. Just a question through to Mr. Schramm and Mr. Delisle that's here as well. So once the playground zones are launched, what is going to be the enforcement mechanism? Are you going to be focused more on education for the first month or two? I would really hate to see, the next day we're hammering people with tickets because I think some education might be due before we start down that path.
Speaking for our own enforcement services, we will follow our philosophy of information, education, and enforcement as the last tool. We'll follow the same philosophy when we kick this project off. Again, let's get the information out there. Let's educate the general public. And again, we'll set those parameters. It's a great comment to set some timeframes. Obviously, if we find somebody who's doing a ridiculous amount of speed where it's well beyond the 50 or 60, we're going to deal with that. But if it's somebody who honestly didn't know, I think it's very appropriate to focus on the education side before we get to the hammering down with tickets.
And from the RCMP point of view, I would echo what Mr. Schramm is saying as well, education. Reality is, and you nailed it, Mr. Mayor, is like the consistency. And again, the majority of the drivers on the roads are driving safely and will respect those speed limits. You'll have the odd ones that might not. And through a little bit of education to make sure that, the new habits are, created, and then after that, I don't see enforcement to being an issue or having to do tons of it in order to have those new zones being respected.
All right, thank you. Through Mr. Schramm, when do you anticipate this being kind of launched?
Our goal, like I said through the presentation, is to start the launch. School's wrapping up end of this month. Our goal is to be pretty aggressive on the signs are ordered. A lot of the new signs are ordered already. What their goal is having it completed, again, depending on the workload of our operations department, to really work with our team, and they've committed to helping out a lot. We're hoping to have it ready for September 1st for the start of school.
Okay. Just my final comment is I would hope that we try to get it done a little sooner so people have time to adjust, but understanding that we do have some resourcing challenges as well. So with that, I will call the question. All those in favor? Motion carried. Can I get a motion, please, that council will appoint Tricia Papke as the designated clerk for the West Yellowhead Regional Assessment Review Board effective immediately through to April 30th, 2023. Councillor Bevan will make that motion. And you'll speak to that, Ms. Bittman?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, every year we need to appoint a designated clerk and also the designated chair for the West Yellowhead Regional Assessment Review Board. This is a group of municipalities that have come together, and we do jointly provide our resources for the Assessment Review Board. A few years ago, it was generally each council would do their own within their own municipalities. The province came up with a more structured approach where training was required. We do actually put notices out to the public for people who would like to join and go on the training. Sometimes we don't have enough people, so being with this conglomerate of the different municipalities, we all come together and share our resources to make sure that we have the required amounts. With that, we also share the chair as on a rotational basis, as is the clerk. Generally, they are from the same municipality, but at this time, Hinton doesn't have anyone trained to be the clerk, and so Edson is offering to do that for them this time.
All right, any questions, comments, or concerns? With that, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carried. Can I get a motion, please, the council appoint Paul Butler as the designated chair of the West Yellowhead Regional Assessment Review Board, effective immediately through April 30th of 2023. Councilor Bevan will make that motion. Do you have anything further to add, Ms. Bittner? No. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. Can I get a motion, please? The council accepts administration's report on the local government fiscal framework as information. Councilor Piscicini will make that motion, and we have Ms. Bittner with us. So,
We've been quite a long time.
well-deserved vacation.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, just getting prepared here. As I think everyone is aware, the local government fiscal framework is the new provincial grant program for municipalities. They've sent out a survey for municipalities to complete. This is a little current here. Currently, we have the Municipal Sustainability Initiative, MSI, which was launched in 2007 with the, to provide long-term funding for communities. There's also one called the Basic Municipal Transportation Grant. It was started as a street improvement program. So those of us that have been around for a long time will know the SIP grant. This one is geared towards transportation infrastructure upgrades only. In the future, the local government fiscal framework is going to replace both of those and will be rolled out in the 24-25 federal year, which is our 24 budget year. So the survey that has been sent out addresses the design of the program and does not deal with issues relating to the funding formula. So it's very important to remember as we're going through. The municipal associations will be engaging with members separately regarding the funding formula. So quite a number of questions on the survey, as you saw in your agenda. Generally, the ones that I've mentioned here, questions 1 to 7, question 10, questions 14 to 24, are very administrative in nature. Such things like the name of the municipality. And it deals with administering the online reporting system, our internal project management practices, the technological requirements, collecting of information. So those questions administration have gone through and sort of pre-answered, as it's mostly of an administrative nature. But there were a few in there that we wanted to show our proposed recommendations for the remaining questions. So the first one we had here, as I go through these, the black highlighted parts are the ones that administration are a recommendation for putting forward with the survey. First is a timing to save funds. Just means that you can expend it on larger capital projects if you can save it. Our recommendation is to have within 5 years spending. If you'd like to answer or have comments as we go through, please just interrupt.
We want to just maybe do this one by one so it's a little bit more organized. Anybody have any thoughts on question number 8? Are you good with that? All right, move on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next one is the elements to be retained and improved. So they're asking what are the key elements of the MSI capital component that you'd like to see continued in the local government fiscal framework. Again, the darker ones are the ones that administration are recommending. I don't want to read them all out, but if there's anything that council would like to comment on this particular item.
And Councillor Sherrod.
My only guarantee is the amount the same. Call it what you like, but is the dollars gonna be the same?
That's not what we're discussing.
No, but that's where it says the elements on the cost, but we don't know how much, or is that coming up later? How much?
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Sherrod. This is purely on the administration of the program, nothing to do with the funding.
I'll hold my question till later.
Any questions, comments on this? No? Okay, moving on.
Question 12 is an asset management one. What tools, resources, and conditions could be used within the program to best support asset management practices in the community? This one I have only selected 3. We have selected up to 5. Again, the darker ones, the ones that I shouldn't say administration has recommended. There are some other ones in within that for council to also consider.
Somebody has comments. I do sort of like the enable local governments to receive a greater percentage of LGFF funding if they fulfill defined asset management goals. Municipalities such as us have taken asset management fairly seriously. I think there's a lot of municipalities that haven't. And I think that, you know, when you're managing your assets and trying to reach those goals, I think there should be some incentive for that. That's my thought.
I can certainly adjust that if council wishes to do that before I send it on.
Councilor Taylor, sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead, Councilor.
You can do 5, I think, if I may, Mr. Mayor, I'd have to require the core infrastructure one.
Yeah.
Because there's communities that will ignore their core infrastructure and spend it on the glorious things, and then they get bailed out. And all that does is takes money away from those who are doing their asset management plans and trying to do their core infrastructure. It's just a thought.
Councilor Byron.
So just to respond to Councillor Position's comment there with that requiring the core infrastructure. So initially I was thinking like, yeah, that's really great. But then I wasn't really sure how do you define the term a reasonable condition? And that's where I was kind of like, ooh, you know, what happens if you are letting a road deteriorate because you know in 2 years you're going to save up, you know, to do a sewer project or something, but then you can't fund another project because you're waiting for something else to kind of line up. So I was a little iffy about that one myself, but I understand the intention that you're meaning behind it, that it is.
GM Bittner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did look at that one too, or we did look at that one as well. The scope for the LGFF is quite wide. You can use it for recreation projects, etc. So there are things other than core infrastructure. And again, it was, as Councillor Byer mentioned out, what is the definition of the reasonable condition of our core infrastructure, and would we be able to get to that, and then we wouldn't be able to use it for other items in the future.
Councillor Taylor.
Through the mayor to Ms. Bittner. Obviously, you could choose up to 5. Was there a reason you only chose 3? Because you just wanted to, you didn't like the other, like, or wanted to focus on 3, or
GM Bittner.
Through the chair to Councillor Taylor. There wasn't any reason why I didn't do 5, but I also didn't want to just do 5 for the just because it asks for 5.
Okay.
And again, as the example I gave for that one there was why I hadn't highlighted that one. The one that the mayor mentioned after listening to his discussion, I agree that probably could be added as well.
I would have to say that I think that the requirement for core infrastructure, I think, is important. But I am concerned, how do you define that? Because if you look at our asset management plan, it'll take us 100 years to bring everything to excellent condition. That's just not a realistic thing. Is it anything below poor condition? Is it anything fair? And then everybody's does their assessments differently. So I would actually be more in favor of required capital projects to be part of the local authority's asset management plan to be eligible for funding. So at least it's a part of a plan. I don't know. I guess you can make those arguments.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The required capital projects to be part of the asset management plan. The reason that was not highlighted is I was thinking along the lines of any emergency things that might come that might not be in our asset management plan. Then we would not be able to use the funding for that.
Councilor Brzezinski.
I think the administration has put a lot of thought into this and probably debated it great. Now they're asking us to wordsmith it, so I'm good either way. I would agree with the one that the mayor wanted to add, and it makes no difference to me if we add the other one to it.
Yeah, you don't want politicians wordsmithing. Next one.
Certainly. So I will add the enable local governments to the survey.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, maybe in the future, if we could have had this slide in our package so that we could have seen where they were leading and then we could have submitted our thoughts and then it could have been debated. Maybe it's just to speed up. Would have been nice.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Just so that we could go, oh, that's what they're thinking. I get it. Just may be nicer in the future. Even just the slideshow.
Yeah.
All right, disaster resiliency.
Yes, so what would be best ways for the program to encourage local governments to build infrastructure that is more resilient to natural disasters? Is again, the ones in the dark, are the ones we are recommending to put forward. The others, I think it may have been the use of the word must within them. I found it could be quite constricting.
Anything on this one? Moving on, next one. Oh, Councillor Barr.
Just one question, oh, sorry, through the chair to Ms. Bittner. Just regarding, a question regarding the floodplain, you know, that I I found it interesting to see that was on there. Do we have a floodplain map of Edson that is actually current?
Through the mayor, I may have to ask GM of Infrastructure and Planning if he's aware of.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I cannot confirm that piece of information, but we will look into it.
Councillor Pacicci.
Which floodplain?
So
In the 50-year,
100-year, 200-year, 1,000-year, there's so many different ranges.
yeah, so I
You
was
don't want to touch that one.
I just thought it was interesting that it was in there, but I wasn't sure if every municipality even had that available to them. So it was tricky to answer.
According to whose floodplain map?
Yes.
next.
I'll move on, and just again, remembering this is for the administration of the program, not the program itself. Is there anything else that you wish to share on how it should be designed?
Anything? If not, I will call the question. All those in favor? Motion carried. You got what you need, right?
Yes, thank you.
All right, can I get a motion, please? The council authorize the town of Edson to become an intervener before the Land and Property Rights Tribunal in relation to the 2022 assessment complaint commenced by Weyerhaeuser. Who would like to make that motion? Councilor Barr will make that motion, and I don't know, CO Beveridge, you're gonna take this one? Or just Bittner?
Awesome. Okay, sorry, thank you. I'll start with this. Designated industrial properties within a municipality. We don't have a lot within ours, but our main one is the Weyerhaeuser complex. A few years ago, assessment for mills and the industrial properties within towns were done by that town's assessor. That industry got together and actually asked if the province could please take that over and do it on a more consistent assessment basis using the same models for everybody. So that's where the designated industrial properties has come from. The Weyerhaeuser company has put an appeal for their assessment, and because the province does that assessment, it has gone through the province for that. We have no sway or really anything to do with that particular assessment as the town. We were notified that Weyerhaeuser had put in a concern about their assessment. It's the first time this has happened within the new structure with this designated industrial programs, the DIPs. So we sought legal counsel on this matter, and they suggested to ensure that our representation can, that we could have representation in the appeal proceedings. that we request to become an intervener before the tribunal. This doesn't mean that we have to, it just means that we can, if we wish, put forward the municipal perspective of this complaint that has been put forward.
All right, thank you. CEO Everett, do you want to supplement?
Thank you. So it's important to note that there is an opportunity to be a silent intervener or an active intervener. So when the materials are submitted through the complaint process, we also get a copy of that, and we would confer with our legal counsel. One of the things, because this is a new process for us, immediately we contacted the tribunal as a guide, as they note within their notification, and this, advise that typically legal counsel is obtained for this. It's a complex process. So it's one thing, we don't know for sure if we will be an active participant or just a silent, and that might be the case, but it just allows the opportunity for the town to also be aware of the complaints and what are the reasoning behind the substantiates the complaint forward that it's put forward.
All right, any questions, comments, or concerns, Councillor Pisichny?
Through the Mayor to Administration. Not understanding the full details of the complaint, is this to be in benefit of argument on behalf of our ratepayer or to defend, because we're not the ones making the assessment? So what would be our purpose for this? Is this to go there to say that we like it or we don't like it? Or I'm just kind of curious what avenue, what we're playing with. Are we there to support a ratepayer or not support a ratepayer? What's our angle?
It's on behalf of the assessment. Right, so the assessment is done. The provincial assessor does the assessment for all of these, and as said, the assessment comes forward to us, in which we create the tax notice from that assessment. So it does, obviously, it's just like any appeal where if we in a normal situation where it's a residential appeal, they would file an appeal through there, and it's the town's behalf that you have your assessor speak for your complaint. That makes sense.
No.
So-
Councillor Pisichny, yeah, go ahead, Councillor Pisichny.
Yeah, through the chair to administration, I understand how appeals work. It's not our assessor making the assessment, it's the provincial assessor making the assessment. Right, so the province is assessing at a certain level. Our ratepayer is unhappy with their assessment. So in years past, they would have come to our assessor and talked to them, and then they have the discussion. I'm trying to understand why we want to intervene in something that in this. Is this for us to protect the assessment? Because I understand, because people don't go to taxes to have them increase. So I understand that they're going there to have their taxes decreased, which greatly affects our community. But at the end of the day, what is our intention as an intervener? Is it to there to help the province defend their assessment? Or is it to help our ratepayer who feels they're being unjustly targeted?
At this point, is to be aware of all the information, and then we can make a decision whether or not we are in support of the provincial assessor or not.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Chouinard.
With that said, then I like the idea that we're silent, because I'm hearing the argument, whose side are we on? So we could be putting ourselves in a really horrible spot. So I appreciate warehouse involvement, so silent, stay behind, because I don't think we win either way. Like no matter which side we defend. So I would say we're silent, keep up to date, but for the time being, until we're seriously wrong, we're probably best to stay out of it. Because you can argue from both sides.
And I think the main goal here is just to be aware of what's going on, what's happening. Because if we're not an intervener, we're not going to be kept updated on.
Correct.
On the
Just be
information.
advised of the decision.
Yeah. So to that end, I would be supporting, making sure we have that information, understanding both why the province has assessed it the way it has. And I've looked at the numbers, I did some research on my own, and I could see why. And also to understand, Weyerhaeuser's position on this as well. So any other further comments, Councillor Taylor?
Through the mayor to administration, just wondering on the time frame on these types of things? No.
At this moment in time, I have no information as far as the time. We were advised that we had to submit acknowledgement to the tribunal by June 6th. And that's passed, but that's fine. Our legal counsel just required that if they're going to act on their behalf, that we required a motion of council.
Councillor Pisichny.
One further question through the mayor to administration. So just lost my train of thought. Never mind. I had a great question that I just forgot it.
Do you want more pen to write down?
No, the mayor was ignoring Peter for so long and then I got lost in my question, so.
While he's making me wear this hideous thing.
Gotta blame it today.
Counselor Moore, oh, sorry, Counselor Pacicini, you have the
Yes,
floor.
sorry. You mentioned it was the first one in the province. Is that the first one for us in this situation, or was it the first one for the province?
This one for us.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Moore.
Through the chair, just curious, this provincial assessor, do they assess it on site or do they assess it not on site and just go by a book or something?
Mr. Mayor, through to Councilor Moore, I'm not aware of the full assessment practices.
Okay, thank you.
All right, with that, I will call the question. All those in favor? Those opposed, motion carried. Can I get a motion, please, the council direct administration to participate in the Alberta Municipalities Power Plus Buying Group contract for procurement of electricity for the term January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2033. And Councillor Byer will make that motion since someone puts their hand up.
No, I didn't have it up.
We have Mr. Brendan Riom with us.
Yeah, that's what we should call it.
I was gonna say, did you guys coordinate beforehand? Look at these three.
We were trying to take the pressure off you from that orange, so we coordinated. So that it looked this way.
You just reverse over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Oh, we all have a.
You can't have fun when what's the.
Everyone's got a kind of a blue theme happening.
That's right.
Council, always, thank you for having me.
Where's your blue?
So I'm going to be discussing tonight the Alberta Municipalities Power Plus program. This is a program that Ms. Bittner and CEO Beveridge and I have been investigating the last couple of weeks here, that the municipality could join going forward. So just been going over background of our current electricity procurement process that we go through right now and the new program that Alberta municipalities is putting forward, and then a recommendation. So the town of Edson entered into a new electricity contract with Alberta municipalities that was effective January 1st, 2022 and runs until December 31st, 2023. This is under their energy program, which is a program that does aggregate purchasing of electricity for municipalities. So essentially buying in bulk to get bulk discounts for municipalities. The max term length is just about 4 to 5 years for municipalities. And it provides sort of a long-term stability for electricity prices compared to market rates. The new offering from Alberta municipalities is called Power Plus program. And this is an electricity procurement program that's very similar to the energy program in its structure and how it's operated, but it provides fixed term pricing for 10-year contracts. So intake is currently occurring right now with the contract term beginning on January 1st, 2024, which conveniently is when our current contract expires and will be up for renewal. What the program would do and what it's designed to do is to provide risk management for fluctuating electricity prices over the long term. Electricity prices are very difficult to predict, and as we're all familiar with, can have major impacts on budgets and operating costs. So what this graph shows is in the blue is the average electricity price per megawatt hour in dollars per megawatt hour. So there's been a lot of fluctuation since 2009. And that's due to a ton of factors in the province based on our electricity market. Alberta municipalities did their first aggregations for the for the energy program in about 2018. And then it gave fixed prices for that term. And then they did another one in 2020, which got another fixed rate, but was higher than the initial aggregation. The yellow line on here shows what a 10-year aggregation could potentially look like for electricity prices over the long term. So based on their projection of where electricity prices are going to go based on 2030 and beyond, it creates a stable baseline for what your consumption charges for electricity would become. Just to compare the two programs, so there's differences in max term lengths. So 4 years for the energy program and 10 years for the Power Plus program. Our current contracted price for electricity is just about 8.5 cents per kilowatt hour. Alberta municipalities is targeting about 6 cents per kilowatt hour for electricity for that 10-year contract. The energy program will protect you in the short term against market volatility, but what the Power Plus program would protect you in the long term for that 10-year period against any fluctuations in the Alberta electricity market. So administration is recommending that council direct administration participate in the Alberta municipalities Power Plus buying group contract for the procurement of electricity for the term of January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2033. And with that, we'll just open it up to any questions.
Council, do you have any questions, comments, or concerns? Councillor Sherrod?
My question is this is the guaranteed rate we're paying for power, but they nail us on the other side for the power line as their service charges. So we got no protection there. I mean, I agree the power rate is a good deal, but with zero protection is their 15 lines of service charges.
Through the chair to Councillor Schnarr, that's correct. This would be protecting us in the long term from the volatility in just consumption charges, but the transmission and distribution that's a regulated piece of the Alberta electricity market that we cannot control. That's between Fortis, ATCO, and the commissions that govern how they operate.
Carbon taxes. Councillor Mark.
Thanks. Through the chair to Brendan. Thanks for the presentation. I think that this is a very reasonable way to go with kind of securing our power costs. Does this have any implications if you have an increase in power compared to what our 10-year average has already been? If we have maybe an increase in power more than what we would expect to have, is there any issues with that?
Through the chair to Councillor Byer. So yes, there is some implication and a bit of risk on that side. So what this contract is, it's called a block contract. So it takes your average amount of power based on your baseline of what you use, say in the last couple of years, and then we're allocated that amount of electricity for our contract for the 10 years. And if we use less than our block allocation, great. Our excess electricity that we're in that block gets sold back to the power pool at market rates. If we go over that, our block allocation, we have to buy from the market at market rates. So that there is the risk on that.
Go ahead.
So just to follow up with that, so we could get money back if we reduce our power consumption over the next 10 years?
Through the chair to Councillor Byer, yes, that is the result of that.
Interesting.
Councillor Bell?
Through the chair to Brendan. So if we bring on our multiplex, this is going to affect that. It could affect it in a big way. Depends on how we build this multiplex and what we put in there for green power, or whatever you want to call it. And that. So we could actually maybe go over it then if it's a big consumption.
Through the chair to Councillor Bevan, there is that risk. However, with this program, they do allow you to add additional facilities onto your contract. It would just be at a different rate than the bulk of your contract. So it's kind of like blending and mixing a mortgage in a way. Or you could treat it as a standalone facility that pays a lower than market rate, but it's still aggregated for that longer period.
Right.
So that's where the risk mitigation on that is.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Sherrod.
And just follow up. So if I'm understanding it right, so we could allocate more than we're going to use, but we only pay for what we use. And because that's what I'm thinking, if you move that bar higher, here in the room, so if we're at 60, we go up to 70. So we're allocating this power, but we're only paying for what we use. And what we're not using, wouldn't we be to our advantage to put the bar higher?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Schnarr, that is correct. Alberta municipalities wants you to be within about 5% of your expected consumption. So we can't overshoot and create an internal market for that to sell back to the grid. We have to still have some due diligence on what our actual consumption would be. But having a higher allocation would be advantageous as it would shield us against the risk of over consuming.
All right, any other questions, comments, or concerns? I do hear from many municipalities that are looking at doing this, so I think it's a positive thing to try and see how it works for us, to try to manage those costs. Steve Beveridge, did you have something you want to add?
Certainly. I just think from the perspective of, as we saw in the budget 2022, electricity was a major portion of our budget that was not anticipated just due to increases. The volatility of this market is something that we're trying to prepare for and trying to allow for more consistency for the future. One of should note there's 50 municipalities signed up already, and they're also many as well determining whether or not the municipalities are moving forward. They had you'll note their original deadline was the end of May, but just given the interest in this program, I think you may have remembered, they've been talking about this program a little bit, and I know that at the Municipal Leaders Caucus that we attended in February, there was discussions about it. So just getting the information out, there's definitely been a lot of interest in this. So they've extended that deadline out. We are kind of hitting that deadline at this moment in order for them they want to go to market now versus waiting until the fall, because they anticipate that the prices are they may not get the price that they're looking for. So just to note.
Councillor Taylor?
Through the mayor, Mr. Allen. So it would be a 10-year term contract. What if things don't work out? Is there a cost to break said contract? What would be the consequences, if any?
Through the chair to Councillor Taylor, Alberta Municipalities has not provided terms of reference for that as of yet, but we can come back with further information for that if is required.
Because this 10 years would go well past the life of this council and the next one, and the one after it. So it's just a question. Thank you.
I do have a roll to check.
All right, with that, I will call the question. All those in favor? Motion carried. We have no information items, no sundry items. We are going to do the council committee reports. We are going back to May the 18th, and just a reminder that this has to do with your committees that you're on and official town business. And we will start with Councillor Byer.
Thanks. I just have one item on June 1st. I attended the Community Care Foundation barbecue that we were invited to as counselors, which we cooked burgers and handed out meals to the health workers and first responders.
All right, thank you. Councillor Bevan.
May 18th and 19th, attended the Evergreen Foundation strategic plan. It went very well. We went through our mission statement, vision statement, and our mandates. Our capital plan facilitated by Collier Projects. They come out and give us a good update on that. And they were very good about going on about the Indigenous Lodge going up in Grand Cache, Pine Valley Lodge, Parkland County, Parkland Lodge, and also what's going to happen in Wildwood. The Evergreen Foundation has hired a health and wellness co-chair initiative, Raylene Wan. She works out of the Pine Valley Lodge in Hinton, and she wants to do work and coaching with all the lodges here eventually and get to know our coordinators in every lodge here and that. She has a wealth of experience. She has goals set out for the lodges people where they're specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and are time efficient. She will be teaching social, physical, mental, and emotional, intellectual, spiritual, and environmental. It's been in Pine Valley and Hinton. They love it. What she has found is that the residents that come there didn't have a lot of mobility, didn't want to participate, said they couldn't do a certain thing. She has a 90% success rate of getting the seniors up, moving around. They're walking now, they're able to climb the stairs. They're happy. They just love it. They wish they would have had it before. So foundation is really moving on with that one. What else here? On the 24th, we had a senior transportation meeting. We hired a new ED. which was Dawn Mitchell. She is now going to take over all our policy procedures. She's going to do grant writing, contracts for our bus drivers, do our bylaws. We have 2 phones that we have, one for the driver and one for her. We also give a pay raise to our bus driver to $21 an hour. And we made a retroactive back to January 1st. What we didn't know from before, all the time she had been driving for the seniors transportation, she never took holiday, not one holiday. She never took one sick day. So she obviously worked when she was sick. She just drove. She never complained about anything, nothing at all. So we put a raise up to $21 an hour, and we passed it last meeting here. She was very happy with it. She wrote us a really nice letter, and we thought she is well deserved of it because she does a terrific job, and the residents really like her. We have trivia night on June the 25th at the Legion. Doors open at 5. The games start at 5:30. We also have raffle tickets that we're selling for the Edson Senior Transportation. They're $10 a ticket, but I'll run a special tonight, 2 for $20 if anybody wants them. Please sign up. We've got to sell them.
I'll take half one, I already bought some.
And the draw will be made on trivia night. On the 27th, I had a community futures meeting. Councillor Moore zoomed in on this, which was nice to see you zoom in on it. What they're doing is here, Alberta Women's Economic Recovery Capital Growth Initiative. The program is a $6 million project based on a grant awarded. There'll be $3 million for Alberta women entrepreneurs and $3 million for Community Futures Network of Alberta. Each community will have $100,000 to give out to these businesses. So what we've kind of decided is instead of giving $100,000 out, we're going to give loans at $10,000 to 10 businesses that want to start. It was better that way. The interest rate is at 2% prime for 5 years, 6 months interest on only payments. The eligibility is the 50.1% women-owned small and medium-sized business that is registered and located in Alberta. Identified as a female entrepreneur, reside in the province of Alberta, be a Canadian citizen or permanent residence. So it was very well received. You did pass it. A lot of discussion on it. It's going to go ahead, and Nancy and her crew are very excited about it. They've already gotten some calls on it and that. So I hope more of the women entrepreneurs take advantage of it here. Jasper, we also with the Community Futures, we have Lemonade Day coming up. June 16th, best tasting lemonade. It's 4 p.m. at the museum. So get your straw, Mr. Mayor. It's going to be a lot of lemonade coming to you.
I think I better take my doctor with me.
Exactly. And June 18th, they're going to have go out and tour all the stands here and that. Jasper, I think I sent this out to council, was 13 stands with 20 children. Sponsorship was $1,150. Hinton 11 stands with 16 children. Their sponsorship was $1,150. Grand Cache 10 stands, 16 children. Sponsorship was $1,050. And Edson came in at 20 stands, 40 children, and the sponsorship was $6,650 for a total of $10,000, and it will be divided up afterwards amongst the communities and everything else. So it is, you just can't believe how Edson took off. They're just challenging everybody else. It's really great to see our young players come out and stuff. And I also did volunteer at the community care foundation that there. So that is my report.
Councilor Pacific.
I attended Federation of Canadian Municipalities from June the 1st to June the 5th, which will report will be different in Canada.
All right, thank you, Councilor Sharp.
May 19th, we flip burgers for Public Works Appreciation Day. May 30th, as the Alberta rep for Yellowwood Trans Canada, we lobbied the city of Edmonton, which we're hoping we have great success. And June 1st to the 6th, I also was at FCM. The report will be in the hall.
Councilor Moore.
Thanks. Yeah, I was also taking part in the May 19th honoring our town employees. And yeah, I must say you did a great job at flipping burgers.
I think we done 100 burgers and 96 hot dogs, so yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Good time.
Oh, yeah, it was. And it was nice to see all the workers out there and appreciating the hamburgers and fixings. May 30th, I think it was the 30th, it was Monday night. I think, well, anyway, it was the graffiti and trash cleanup, Edson Youth Council, members of Town Council, as well as administration and the RCMP all took part in that.
And Citizens on Patrol.
Yeah, Citizens on Patrol too. And yeah, the graffiti didn't come off all that well. We tried, scrubbed and everything else, but did make a bit of a difference. I was quite amazed at the feats that some of the graffiti people took on getting way up high on buildings, but that's another story. Yeah, there was a lot of trash to clean up too. I mean, I think we filled about 4 bags with trash, which accumulated throughout the winter, I imagine, and all that. And yeah, so it's certainly looking better than it was. And June 2nd to 5th, I with Councillor Sishney and Councillor Chouinard were at the FCM convention in Regina, and more on that on the 21st.
Right, Councillor Taylor.
May 18th, I attended the library board meeting, joined tonight by our board chair, Rob Corson, who was here earlier. May 19th, I was at Public Works barbecue. It was great to see Public Works being recognized and conversations there. Last night, June 6th, had a youth council meeting where we talked about some of the positives and challenges of this past year, and how we can make the youth council better coming into the following year. So that is my report.
All right, for me, spent most of the month sick, unfortunately, so I did miss some of those things. Thanks for council for handling that. June 1st, did welcome the Lieutenant Governor to Edson. She was here to say thank you to our healthcare workers and visited the Edson Mosque and the Galloway Museum, and she just so thoroughly impressed with Edson. She contacted mayors during the pandemic, shortly after she was installed, and committed to coming to Edson, and she followed through on that commitment. So it was great to see her at the mosque. One of our youth counselors, who's Muslim, spoke about how the Lieutenant Governor is an inspiration to Muslim youth, being the first Muslim to take that office. So it was really, really great, and it was a small gathering, but it was just a fantastic event. And hats off to the Community Care Foundation for all their work that day with the barbecue that I know some of you were at, and the event later on in the afternoon, and the Edson Mosque as well. On the 1st as well, I know many members of council were busy with that barbecue and FCM, but I was able to celebrate CO Beverage's 1st anniversary with the town of Edson, so congratulations. She survived. Yeah. So we're very thrilled that we made the 1-year mark, so it's fantastic. And then last night we had a youth council meeting, which was great. One of our youth counselors, longstanding youth counselors, is graduating this year, and the youth council really talked about how impactful the program is, and we talked about recruitment for the new incoming youth council, and talked about some of the successes and challenges that we had. They are going to be going on a tour here next month and a wrap-up event as well at the museum. So we'll make sure that council is invited to that as well. The youth council year went by quick with COVID. There's certainly some challenges there. And then today we were able to have a meeting with Minister of Justice Tyler Shandro and Emily Martin Long and Emily Getson. responding to the letter that council sent. We were originally supposed to meet for 30 minutes, it ended up being an hour-long meeting, and some really good discussion. And one of the things that was brought up, which is probably the first time I've really heard it from the minister, is take it for what you will. One of the reasons they're looking at a provincial police force is because they believe the federal government is going to be stepping away from contract policing with the RCMP and having the RCMP just focus on federal priorities. So I know that there was a ruling or a study or some inquiry that was done that did recommend that here last year. So they want to be, so from the minister's perspective, they want to be prepared for that. There's only one province that isn't investigating a provincial police force right now, and that's Manitoba. That was his words. But we did speak about the horrific consultation session, and he apologized for that and said he's heard that loud and clear, and that's why he's going up to municipalities now to meet one-on-one. One of the points that we made is we want, if the province does go down this path, we definitely want to be involved in that process to ensure it's done properly and municipal representation is heard. We were able to share our perspectives of rural Alberta and how a lot of the issues that we're hearing about have to do with the justice system and mental health and addictions issues and not with our police force. So I think he heard our concerns. I don't know what kind of impact that's going to be, but at least we were able to have that conversation. I don't know, CO Beveridge, is there anything that you picked up on that you'd like to add?
Mr. Mayor, I think you've covered actually all the highlights from the consultation.
So we'll keep those lines of communication open. And Yellowhead County hosted both the town of Edson and Whitecourt in the chambers today. So that was fantastic. We're able to have some other conversations as well. And that is my report. With that, we have no financial items. Questions from media and public regarding items from this council meeting? Okay. All right. We will take a quick 5-minute recess before we move into camera. Thank you. Can I get a motion to go in camera? I so move. Councillor Positioning, all those in favor? Motion carried. All right, please. Motion for adjournment from Councillor Chouinard. All those in favor? Motion carried.